Greetings. It's about 1:15 in the morning here in Chicago. Today I saw a drawing of an elder Rasta man by the name of Kojo Brown, who I had the pleasure of meeting and living with in Compton, California. And since I seen a picture of Kojo, my mind just been spinning. So I figured I'd tell the story to document my history with Kojo Brown. Me and my brethren Kepra, we moved to Los Angeles, and we stayed with a brother of a person that we met here in Chicago that lived in Compton. We also stayed with some Kemetic Rasta by the name of the King's Chamber that were in LA on Jefferson and Normandy. So we would go back and forth from Compton to LA, from Compton to LA. And one day, while we were in Compton, we had our incense and everything, and there's some railroad tracks right there in the bus stop. We were at the bus stop getting ready to leave Compton and go to Los Angeles to hang out with the King's Chamber. And a van pulled past us going real slow, and there was two Rasta in there. But the crazy thing is the van only went 2 houses down and pulled in the driveway. So this Rasta man got out and he walked to the corner and he told me and my brethren Kepra to come with him to his house. So me and Kepra, we went to this Rasta man's house, and he took us in his backyard, and he had a big ganja tree, a huge marijuana tree that was really, really wide. Now, mind you, I'm only a 24-year-old Rasta man born in Chicago, Illinois. So I never seen a marijuana plant before. I've seen small ones, When we used to smoke our weed and throw this, the roaches, and then the little seeds would grow. But this is my first time seeing this big marijuana tree. So this brethren, his name was Kojo. So we ended up staying with him in Compton at the house sometime. So we would stay in Compton with Kojo, or we would stay in LA with the King's Chamber. And so after staying with Kojo for a while, right away he didn't tell me a lot of his history, but he had two little boys, two little Rasta youth, and he had a daughter. And his sons would run up on us all the time and be like, my daddy mentioned on Black Uhuru song. My daddy and Bongo Man. They would tell us everything their daddy was doing. But I became real close to Kojo. Now, the house didn't have no electricity. You know, it's warm in California, so everything was fine. Real Rasta man house. And there was a house next door. So his neighbor would get his phone calls. So when Kojo's neighbor would holler for him to come to the phone, he would send me over there. And when I would go to the phone to get the messages, it would be Peter Tosh, Jimmy Cliff, Michael Rose from Black and Hoodoo. And I was flabbergasted, right? So me and my brethren, we used to sell incense and Rasta pins. Let me see if I can show you one. We used to sell, I used to sell Haile Selassie badges and all type of Rasta badges and incense at the Black Conscious events and at the reggae shows. And so sometimes we would get up early in the morning in Compton and we would head to L.A., leave Kojo house. I see him early in the morning, head to L.A., get my incense ready, get all my badges ready. I used to pin a bunch of these on the apron and hold my incense. And I would get to the concert early, and I would sell so much incense and buttons before the show. And once everybody get into the show, then we would pack up and go in. And when they play the encore, after they play their last song, they run off the stage. They're going to come back out for one or two more songs. So when they would run off the stage, we would go outside and set up. So as soon as the show's over, we come out, we sell a bunch of Rasta badges and incense. We make $400, $500, $600 a show. So one day, I get to the show, and it's a Black Uhuru show. I leave Kojo house like 8 in the morning. Go to L.A., I'm doing all this running around. Go way out in the suburbs somewhere from L.A., and it's about 7 to 8 at night. And I'm out here selling my incense and my badges, and everybody's finally in the show. So we packing up so we can go see the show. And a limousine pulled up. And when the limousine pulled up, somebody blew the horn. And when I let my window down, when they let the window down, it was Kojo in a limousine with Black Uhuru. So we went over to the limousine, like, whoa. And I gave Black Uhuru a bunch of badges. I would make whatever the song that the group had. I had little badges say Black Uhuru, Black Sounds of Freedom, stuff like that. I would give him those badges. And those reggae artists would actually wear the badges on stage while they perform. So therefore, when the show's over and we're outside, everybody wanted those badges. But it blew my mind because I just left Kojo at 8 in the morning. Now I'm at the show with these superstars, and guess who's in the limousine? Yeah. So this happened a lot, where I would go to these reggae shows, leave early in the morning, go to these reggae shows, and the limousine pull up and blow. Once again, it's Kojo with Jimmy Cliff, with Peter Tosh. The list goes on and on. And so as I began to talk to him and he began to teach us a lot of stuff, that's when we found out that, when Haile Selassie went to Jamaica, Mortimer Planter was the one that was called to really go on the plane and deal with His Majesty. And Kojo was a part of that team with Mortimer Planter. And they was a part of the whole the whole delegate of Rasta that was involved with His Majesty. So Kojo began to show me all type of ancient scripts and old, ancient Ethiopian drawings of King David that looked just like Haile Selassie, old pictures of baby Christ that looked just like Haile Selassie, and show me all these letters from all over the world that they was writing from India and China to Bob Marley, trying to get Bob Marley to sing to their God. They wanted Bob Marley to sing to Krishna and to sing to Buddha. It was very interesting. I'm only 24 years old, so my mind is blown because I just happened to be at the bus stop and meet this brethren that is a real foundation of Rastafari liberty, an elder at the time. Now, I started out as a young Rasta in 79 in Chicago. And when we would get together to smoke chalice, it would always be Rasta, get together, you take your crown off, you say your blessings, and we smoke chalice. But when I met Kojo in Compton, it was the strangest thing because a lot of the older African American neighbors that wasn't Rastas at all would come by Kojo and he would smoke chalice with them. It was, I never seen nothing like that before. Usually it was just Rastas with Rastas, but Kojo was with the neighborhood. And he had this small coconut chalice. The coconut was really small, that everybody have smoked on. Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Black Uhuru, you name it. Fred Lodge, you name it. All the big artists, Dennis Brown, everybody had smoked on this chalice. And this man was in the city of Compton, in a black community, and all of the regular African-American neighbors would come by and he would smoke chalice with them. I couldn't believe it, and the neighborhood loved Kojo. All the brothers and sisters in Compton, the neighbors, they all loved him. That was a whole different perspective of Rasta for me. I had never seen nothing like that before. You know? I had never seen nothing like that before. And so that was a crazy experience. For me to only be 24 years old and to meet somebody that had that much history in the Rastafari culture. And I used to just sit and listen to him for hours. And I remember one time he told me how when him and Mortimer was in England, that they were hanging out with Jimi Hendrix, and that Jimi Hendrix was going Rasta. And he showed me a picture of two Rasta men playing the bongos for Jimi Hendrix. This is when Jimi Hendrix stopped hanging out with the white guys and got with the black guys that called himself the Band of Gypsies and was going more militant. And he was telling me that Jimi Hendrix was growing his dreadlocks. This is before the Babylon system killed Jimi Hendrix, because, you know, they murdered Jimi Hendrix by ODing him and holding his head back. And Jimi Hendrix died in an ambulance from vomit, not from drugs. And Jimi Hendrix was turning militant. So Kojo was in England with Jimi Hendrix at that time. And Jimi Hendrix was Rasta. Just unbelievable information. So I remember the day Ras Kojo and his daughter and his two sons left Compton to return to Jamaica. And he left me some of his sacred plaques of Haile Selassie that's somewhere in Hawaii. When you move a lot, you just can't keep up with stuff. And so I really wish I still had those plaques, but I moved to Hawaii, and my woman ended up getting pregnant, and it was an emergency. I had to rush to LA because she couldn't fly. So a lot of stuff got left in Hawaii. But I just wanted to talk about Ras Kojo Brown and his powerful influence on Rastafari culture and his influence on me, because I was only a 24-year-old Rasta man from Chicago. And I had been around some pretty good teachers myself. Rasta Zadi, Chucky Isaiah Ferguson, Josh Stone, some brethren. But when I was in Compton at that bus stop, it had to be the power of the Most High for us to be at the bus stop at that particular time, and for this Rasta man that's an intricate part of Rastafari history to only live 2 doors down and to happen to pull by before we got on the bus and invited us to his gates. And so that, for me, was a high elevation with Rastafari, because now I was getting the information straight from the source. All the information of Rastafari history. A lot of stuff I won't say on here. All the information on Bob Marley, because Mortimer and Bob Marley, they're the ones that influenced Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh, and Bob Marley to take the conch out their hair and go Rasta and start singing reggae music. So this is why Ras Kojo Brown is so honored, because he is at the beginning of reggae music and at the beginning of the conversion of a lot of the regular Jamaicans that played music that went Rasta and started making black reggae music. And As time went, I would go see Bongo Man and stuff like that and see him in everything. I would see him in all the documentaries about Rasta. So I was like, wow. He never too much bragged on himself, but his sons made it clear. My daddy in Bongo Man, my daddy in this, my daddy in that, my daddy in everything. And his sons, they was two little young Rasta men. And they was tripped out. He also had a daughter, but she was quiet. She was older than the boys. But the little boys was tripped out. They would run up on me and Kemper in the morning. I bet you don't know where the Shine-Eyed girl is. They would run up on us. I bet you didn't know our daddy on Black Uhuru song. They mentioned my daddy. All the time, they would tell me everything about their daddy. And so now I'm about to be 64 years old. And at that time, I was 24. And that was 40 years ago. But after seeing his picture today, I just reflected on a lot. And I, texted his son on Instagram. But the information was too much to tell him everything. And it was burning at my soul. So I said, let me go live and put this information out there about Ross Kojo Brown. And so, for me, I feel like I was kind of chosen, which is nothing special. It's like a mission because the way my life had me end up being around Sun Ra at 21, 22 years old and being around Ross Kojo Brown at 24 years old. And I'm just a youth. I'm just a baby at this time. And I'm getting all this information that I can't say I'm responsible for getting. It was something bigger than me that put me in that position. And so salute to Ross Kojo Brown. May he rest in power. Much respect to his sons and his daughter. And I just can't believe how fortunate I was to be able to be around a historical elder like that at such a young age. And at one time he mentioned he wanted me to write a book for him. Now, one thing about me is I've always been aggressive. And so one time when I went to dinner with Sun Ra and he ordered some meat, I asked Sun Ra, why you eating that? And from that day on, when Sun Ra went to dinner and I was there, he would never order meat. And I'm just a baby. I'm not supposed to be saying nothing to these elders like that. But I remember one time at Kojo's house, he would have tea every morning. And I seen him make his tea and put some white sugar in there. And my dumb ass, I'm like, why you putting that white sugar in there? That white sugar ain't no good. We don't deal with sugar cane, cocaine, Novocaine, because cane kill Abel. He was like, he said, Bridget, the reason I use sugar is because we did so much slavery in Jamaica with the sugar cane. I said, yeah, we pick cotton here in America too, but it don't mean I won't wear silk. He said, you African Americans think you know everything. I said, you asked me to help you write your book. I don't know. I don't know what kind of youth I was. I don't know. I don't know who the hell would say that to Kojo, right? Or who would say that to Sunrise? Who would do that? But they liked it. And so Kojo, he really liked that, you know. But that was crazy. You know. Here I am talking crazy to the elder. But I feel like he a family member, you know. And so when I got to Hawaii and he got to Jamaica, I wrote him. And he wrote me a letter back and he said, Brethren, out of all the brethren in L.A., the I is the only one to write I, man. You know? And Ross Kojo Brown is somebody very special in my life. I was able to jump the line and get Rasta history straight from the source with people that traveled with Emperor Haile Selassie, and to really get a lot of inside information about Rasta at a young age. And being born in America, being an African American, and being around this African born in Jamaica that treated me just like I was a son or something. It was an amazing feeling, you know. And a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching and a lot of things I'm saying go to brethren like Ross Kojo Brown, Peter Elaton, my elder, Josh Stone, my elder, Rastazadi, Wadada I, Ross Chucky Isaiah Ferguson, and Sun Ra. These people, and Dick Gregory. I can't leave out Dick Gregory, who I used to go to all his lectures. And these people pretty much created a monster, to say. But I had to speak on this after seeing the great illustration of Ross Kojo. And I would always think about how fortunate I was as a young African-American Rasta to meet somebody of that caliber, who he told me he was one of the few Rasta that could go anywhere in Jamaica, because Jamaica was real violent in the 80s. But Ross Kojo Brown was one of the most powerful men in Jamaica. And it was really a blessing to be able to have him teach me so much history. And one day I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk about all the mystical things he told me about Haile Selassie and all the information he told me about reggae and stuff like that. I remember the night he pulled up in a limousine at the Black Uhuru show. And that night I was at the house when he got home. And he was pissed off when he got home. He came into the house and he walked up to me and Kepper and he said, "Spongy reggae. Spongy reggae. What is spongy reggae? Rasta, a sponge is soft, aya. A sponge is soft." And so he really didn't like that song by Black Uhuru. Bounce right here, every bounce over there, spongy reggae. Kojo hated that song because no spongy reggae. He said sponge soft. He was not happy. And there's other things he talked about with Michael Rose and stuff that I won't go into. Rest in peace to Puma. This one, Puma was still alive. It was Michael Rose, Puma, and Ducky Simpson. Black Uhuru at his finest. But Ross Kojo did not like that spongy reggae song for True. And he was hardcore about Rasta business. He didn't take Rasta for no joke thing at all. And when he went to see these artists, he was checking on them because he the one responsible for them becoming Rasta and putting Rasta in the music. So he had expectations for these reggae artists to make sure they uphold the standards of Rastafari to the heights. And so he was not happy after the Black Uhuru show. And so this is where I get a lot of my militancy from. The elders I come up under, they really didn't play. Kojo really, he was very nice, very quiet, drank his tea every morning, didn't really talk that much unless the vibe would come and then he would start to teach. But he was very militant and very, very serious and very, very much in love with black people. And so at 24, this is before I go to Hawaii, this the type of birth I have from my elder Peter, Zadi Wadada, Chucky Isaiah Ferguson, Joss Stone, Sun Ra, Kojo. This is the type of upbringing I get right from the beginning before I get out here as a big man and start pushing the line and start teaching from my point of view. And they got everything to do with it. And so when you see I Man deal with Rasta, Ross Kojo Brown got everything to do with the foundation and the strength I got when it comes to Rastafari. I don't never sway from what he told me, ever. So, you all be strong. One God, one aim, one destiny. We as black people got to rise up and it's forward ever, backwards never.